Anyways, Shen Zechuan is grinding on his lap. He asks Xiao Qie, can I
What's up, guys? It's Kictor. I'm here with my beautiful girlfriend Stitch to talk about Ballad of Sword and Wine, Volume 3.
Okay, so when last we met, I don't know if you remember, kind of easy to forget, but our protagonists were caught in a thunderstorm making love on horseback. And we did confirm that they were indeed making love, and I was just not reading hard enough into the text. So you may be wondering, what happened to them after that? Well, they rode as far as the Imperial Army's drilling grounds, all the way to a little cottage by the hot springs that Xiao Qie had taken Shen Zechuan to once before. They spent the entire night indulging in desire, entangled in the throes of passion, and Volume 3 opens on the morning after, with Xiao Qie half-dressed outside the cottage, peacefully feeding his horse and falcon. Give a little extra carrots to Snowcrest, why don't ya? Then he comes inside and sees Shen Zechuan still under the covers, so he removes his earring for him and even casually massages the red spot where the clasp dug into his delicate skin.
Why don't you do that for me?
You don't wear earrings anymore.
Maybe I would if you did that to my delicate
Sometimes
ears.
I grab your earlobes and then you say, ow. That's aside the point. The whole scene feels so calm and sweet and domestic, something they haven't experienced before during the intense downs and ups of their relationship. And ups and downs and gallopings. Sorry, I'll let it go now. Shen Zechuan awakens, but Xiao Qie lays back down with him, so they're snuggled up with Shen Zechuan laying on his chest.
Aww.
And in the soft, intimate setting, they touch on their homesickness and make each other laugh before Xiao Qie speaks an impossible dream. Let's go together, home to Libei, with your Shifu too. And Shen Zechuan demurs by saying that Jigong would want to return to Duanzhou instead, so they can't go together. Xiao Qie counters by saying that as long as they can get out of the capital, they will go together to the ends of the earth, implying that he would follow Shen Zechuan instead. Shen Zechuan again doesn't respond directly with what he wants or whether it's even possible, but that Xiao Qie should be in Libei, that the future of his family depends on him. And Xiao Qie responds with a laugh saying, do you want me or not? Shen Zechuan responds, will you give yourself to me or not? Ooh. This brief scene is not only cavity-inducing in its sweetness, but also encapsulates the long-term barriers to their relationship and their individual attitudes towards those challenges. So it'll be interesting to see if they can carve a path towards a future together as happy as they are in this moment. I think we'll see a little bit of that in this volume, you know? So it's a good place to start.
Xiao Qie and Shen Zechuan versus the 8 great clans. This could have been a flowchart, but it's not that deep.
I feel like I've traumatized myself and everybody with the flowcharts. So just made a list of characters, positions, because one of the themes in this volume is how the 8 noble clans that have been entrenched in the capital for like multiple generations, decades, through different emperors and whatnot, have still maintained power and they still leverage that against like the court and the emperor. And so our protagonists are going up against that and trying to carve out their own power. So the 8 great clans are very involved in this volume. Now, after the incident with the ditches flooding, the emperor's court is looking for a scapegoat. The top 2 contenders are Pan Xiangjie, the Minister of Works responsible for the manual labor that would have prevented the problem, and Wei Huaigu, the Minister of Revenue responsible for allocating the funds for preventing the problem. However, all the officials from the noble clans in the capital have banded together to protect their own and are clamoring for the emperor to impeach Pan Xiangjie from his post. What's important to remember is that the emperor is also fighting his own battle against the power and influence of the nobility in his court. Xiao Qie gives the emperor some bro-to-bro advice on the situation and convinces the emperor to only punish Pan Xiangjie with flogging and with financial reparations for the flood damage. In this way, both Pan Xiangjie and his son, who happens to be the Vice Minister of Revenue, will be extremely indebted to the emperor and loyal to him moving forward. This would also prevent the nobles from putting their own man into the vacant Minister of Works position. This solution to the emperor's problem of who to punish also helps out both Xiao Qie and Shen Zechuan by chipping away at the power of the 8 noble clans. What ends up happening after that is that Pan Lin, the son of Pan Xiangjie, seeks out Xiao Qie and begs him to put in a good word to the emperor about pardoning his father, which he already did. So Xiao Qie's plan is very successful in gaining him new allies within the noble clans that now owe him a favor.
Okay.
So yeah,
So it all worked out.
it all worked out. So that's part one of that. Xiaoqi also meets with Shui Xiuyi, the elder but untalented brother of Shui Xiuzhou, who set him up with the silk incident. Now, Shui Xiuyi is a lawful son, meaning that he was born from the head of the household's wife rather than from a concubine. Shui Xiuzhou is not only younger than him, but of common birth, born from a concubine. Even so, he became the acting head of the Shui clan and rose through the ranks of the court, all through his own merit. Shui Xiuzhou is a man of incredible talent, one that Xiaoqi and Shen Zechuan would have tried to recruit into their camp if it hadn't been for the silk incident. To quote the novel, "A man astute enough to tie thousands of puppet strings as precautions long before events were set in motion was unlikely to put himself at the disposal of another." And although he's never directly involved, his name keeps showing up in these intrigues in the capital. From tactfully getting Shui Shuyi drunk and acting sympathetic to his plight, Xiaoqi is able to extract a key piece of information. When Xiaoqi was getting thrown under the bus for the assassination attempt on the emperor, the owner of a certain pleasure house gave false testimony that Xiaoqi had accepted bribes in his military position. This betrayal came out of nowhere, and Xiaoqi was never able to find out the cause of it. But then he learns that Shui Xiuzhou, who is not a lecherous man whatsoever, purchased 10 young men and women from that brothel years ago and has been raising them in his household ever since. We don't know the reason why just yet, but at the very least, that connection likely explains the betrayal. So, behind the scenes, the Shui clan is kind of going after Xiaoqi, but in very subtle, clever machinations. So it kind of puts him... Like, I personally feel that Shui Xiuzhou is kind of a Jin Guan Yao character.
I was gonna say Jin Guan
Right?
Yao, yeah.
He's just taller. Taller and without the hat.
With a couple hats on.
Kind of an intimidating character coming out of the woodworks here.
There is a picture in this book with the people wearing Jin Guan Yao hats.
Yeah! Did I figure out who those were? I guess the embroidered uniform guard wears the jiggy hats because... This whole time, I mean, I'm not imagining Shen Zechuan wearing this hat at work, but I guess he is.
Should be called the embroidered hat guard.
Truly.
It's a nice hat.
It's a very nice hat. Gives you a few inches if you're lacking some. Any questions at this point?
Nope.
Okay.
What was the silk incident?
Xiaoqi got in trouble because he, technically embezzled some money because he accepted a bunch of silk as payment for the Imperial Army's manual labor.
I remember that part.
It was recorded as low-grade silk. It was actually high-grade silk, so there was some error there, and technically, Shui Xiuzhou is the one behind that.
Got it.
So
it's like when your grandma sends you a package and writes, "Oh, there's just a bookmark in it," and it's full of food.
yeah. And then you have to pay customs on that because they've opened it up and you're like, Grandma. Anyways.
Got it.
Yes. So that was the first incident where they started being like, this guy is laying down traps so well in advance that he can only be mega scary. But we haven't really come face to face with him yet. There was one scene where he briefly interacted with Shen Zechuan, but they haven't come really face to face as antagonistic towards each other yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, as an aside, when Xiaoqi is talking to the emperor, he puts in a good word for an honest, diligent accountant with the Ministry of Revenue, Liang Qiushan, who, in the chaos of the ditch flooding incident, kept track of the Imperial Army's requisition of medicinal herbs to treat plague victims. He is not going to be super important in this volume, but it's just an example of, through these little, favors of putting people into government positions, giving them a leg up here and there, helping out their family. Xiaoqi is kind of collecting an assortment of allies in the capital, and so, these names and characters will appear here and there as allies.
Okay.
Yes.
Give him all your money. Why are you arguing? Just looking at him. Look at this canon of visual art of Shen Zechuan. Now give him your money or die. His pussy is out. It's right there.
That man was meant to be pregnant. It's incredible.
Oh my god.
Isn't that Emma sent us pins. I have that art on a pin on my bag, and you would not believe how many people stopped me at con. Can I take a picture of your bag? I'm like, are you 18 years old? Hello? Okay, so that's what Xiaoqi has been up to. Meanwhile, Shi Hongxuan has been thrown into prison since the brothel collapsed on him and the emperor.
Right.
You remember that. And things don't look too good for him. Wei Huaigu intends to use him as a scapegoat, but he is a man motivated by money. And if there's anything Shi Hongxuan has as a merchant family, it's lots and lots of money. His wealth cannot be overstated. So Shi Hongxuan intends to bribe his way out of prison with 4 million taels, but that's easier said than done. Money isn't digital or made of paper. We're talking heavy bars of silver, cartloads of it, moving through a country with checkpoints at every pass and territory. And then, once it arrives, it has to be stored somewhere, and spending it also poses a number of risks. It's near impossible, even for someone not in prison. So Shi Hongxuan needs an associate to take care of this money transfer. Who else but Shen Zechuan, the only person able to visit him? Of course, Shi Hongxuan doesn't trust anyone when it comes to his fortune, and his business is managed very carefully. But Shen Zechuan has already secretly swayed his steward Shi Dan to his side to pull off this delicate swindling. Shi Hongxuan, unfortunately, did not succeed in life by being a stupid man. After rotting away in a dank, miserable cell for far too long with no government officials coming to interrogate him, he realizes that he is not in the imperial prison, and his warden is actually one of the embroidered guards. Shen Zechuan has been holding him captive this entire time.
Oh my God.
How scary is that?
That same guy with his pussy out.
Yes! Isn't he amazing?
Damn.
Good for him.
That is like a horror movie moment.
I love that. I love that so much. I love how scary he is and so sexy. He confronts Shen Zechuan about this, but he puts on a show of willingness to bargain for his life under the same terms that Shen Zechuan deceived him about, arguing that he knows when to accept defeat and that their alliance is still salvageable. He's kind of just seen it as a business transaction. It's like, oh, you got me this time, buddy, but like, we can make this work. I've got plenty of money. If you asked nicely, I would have given you the money. Just get me out of here. But then he brings up Qi Hulian, which is Shen Zechuan's mentor, his teacher from the Temple of Guilt, and threatens that he will be killed if he is not released from prison. He is the one who took him and Jigang away, and so Shen Zechuan has been trying to find them in the capital ever since. He knows that Shen Zechuan has not found him, and his practiced show of indifference is a dead giveaway that Shen Zechuan cares deeply. So, Shen Zechuan releases him, and they return to Shi Hongxuan's manor, after which he reneges on their deal and calls out hired martial artists to kill Shen Zechuan. We then get to see Shen Zechuan unsheath his sword avalanche in a real fight as the Shi manor goes up in flames. Not actually sure why it catches on fire, but it does. Anyways, Shi Hongxuan ends up slitting his own throat rather than dying at another's hands. Yeah, shit. I know, so that ended quite climactically. Something I'm not able to fully capture in summary is how Shi Hongxuan represents a certain view of the world in contrast to the path that our protagonists will choose. He has a lot of interesting dialogue with Shen Zechuan right to the very end, so his death scene is quite impactful. After his death, Shi Hongxuan is charged with the crimes of amassing a private army in his residence and resisting arrest. So he's kind of taken care of as a scapegoat in the aftermath after this. But
Okay.
yeah, but there's so many characters that like overall you maybe don't really particularly care about him. It's not like Shi Hongxuan is a great guy or even a good-looking guy. So, you know, once he's dead, you don't really think about him much. But a lot of these side characters, whether or not they're antagonistic or not, they always at some point really showcase a certain worldview, and that makes them so interesting because you kind of see where they're coming from. You see there's a little bit of right, even if they're ultimately wrong in their perspective. So it's very interesting.
Let's combine finances. Okay, but make it sexy.
Although our protagonists are busy with their individual schemes, every time they are able to meet in person, they can't keep their hands off each other. They are so transparently passionate for each other, there's no playing hard to get whatsoever, and they always have this very sensual banter intermixed with discussion of completely serious business. It's so juicy to read. Also, Xiaoqie, this is totally unrelated, but also Xiaoqie has picked up the habit of bringing Shen Zechuan food so that he actually eats, which is really cute.
Oh my gosh.
And I've noticed that in contrast, when Shen Zechuan eats in other company, he tends to only pick at his food. So it really is making a difference. And Xiaoqie is too impatient to pick the bones out of fish, so Shen Zechuan starts doing it for him and feeding him fish off its own chopsticks.
Oh my god.
And so it's kind of like, I feel like just a little detail that, like, once it happens the first time, it keeps happening after that. Every time he's just like, make sure he gets a little bit of fish.
Oh,
so cute.
I love that.
It's so cute. I love that so much. Anyways, as Shen Zechuan is grinding on his lap, he asks Xiao Qie, can I pray? Just normal business conversations. Can I pretty please use the Northeast Provisions Trail to steal all the silver? To give a quick refresher, this is a military supply route owned by the Xiao family. Any supplies on this trail are personally escorted by the Libei armored cavalry and are not subject to inspection checkpoints. And so, with Shi Hongxuan's death, Shen Zechuan is determined to steal all his shit. But he needs a way to transport that. Xiao Qie says, sure, but that's at the discretion of my brother. You know, I don't technically have control over the trail. Shen Zechuan responds by saying that if the money belongs to Xiao Qie, his brother will have no problem with it at all. Quote, consider it a bride price and hold on to it for me, Argangzi.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Like, hello?
Wow.
Like, yes, he's being cheeky and flirtatious, but entrusting Xiao Qie with this huge resource really brings home how they're not just intertwined romantically, but politically as well. Their conversations are always centered on we and us as a given, even for the indeterminate future.
Oh.
They also fuck in the bathtub at a later point. I don't need to go into detail, but I shamelessly love the sex scenes in QJJ so much. Like,
You could go into a little bit of detail.
It's just, they just are so into each other. They're just so into each other. Like, every time they're able to meet privately, that's where it ends up. They talk business, and
Then they get down to business.
and then they snuggle, and it's so great. And I just love it so much. They're so romantic.
Aw.
And also, it gets me every time. I love a good gag, right? Half the time, the scene, like, immediately cuts from them fucking to Xiao Qie's entourage of guards on the rooftop, just staring into space, trying to ignore everything that's happening underneath them.
Oh my god.
Like, it's so funny.
Poor guy.
Every time.
What an adorable side couple. I hope they aren't doomed by the narrative.
Okay, there's one scene where these two characters meet for the first time, and then they are immediately made irrelevant for the rest of the volume, but they will return and they will become a lot more central. We'll hear a lot more about them moving forward, but this is the scene where they meet, and it is so very cute. I mentioned a couple times how there is a gay side pairing in the story between the fallen from Grey Swordsman Qiao Tianya and the ethereal, brilliant-minded scholar Yao Wenyu. I feel like it's pretty rare to have a fully canon side ship in a Danmei novel, although this one is much more subtle than what our protagonists get up to. I even wondered if I was playing it up more in my mind than it is in the text, but the chapter where they first meet each other is so poetically romantic. Qiao Tianya left his qin, a stringed instrument, at Xiao Qie's estate and goes looking for it on a beautiful spring day. He then comes across a stunningly beautiful man in the garden, playing with a kitten and trying to learn a song on the instrument he found.
Aww.
He approaches the man and begins this flirty banter of offering to teach him the song himself, with Yao Wenyu matching his energy. I've got to read you the scene because it is just, even the banter between them is good. It's a different flavor, but it's so tasty. Even though they had never conversed, Qiao Tianya knew who he was. Truly the epitome of a man of leisure. Qiao Tianya swung his legs over the railing and set the tray on the ground. There's no need to study the score for this tune. If you're keen to learn, I can teach you. The man looked up at him and laughed. I think of wine and the wine appears. I seek the tune and the musician arrives. My friend, you're truly my lucky star. The springtime view in the gardens of this estate is excellent. A pity no one appreciates it. It's fate that I've encountered you while enjoying the scenery of spring, and it's pure serendipity that I happen to hear this melody. Kindred spirits are hard to come by. I'm not good at much besides playing the chin. If you pass me by, you'll find no one else here who's up to teach you. Qiao Tianya poured wine for himself while standing. After drinking a cup, he tilted his chin at the man. So how about it? Serving one's teacher is akin to serving one's father. The man laid the chin on the ground and dangled his jade pendant to tease the cat, saying in a composed and deliberate tone, to be acknowledged as someone's teacher, you must first convince the student of your worth. Qiao Tianya stroked the light stubble on his chin. I, Qiao Tianya, never lie. Acknowledge me if you're willing to believe me. Forget it if you aren't. The man let the jade pendant fall onto his lap and looked at Qiao Tianya again. After a moment, he smiled. I believe you.
Okay.
And then presumably he's like, I'm imagining like the golf swinging sort of thing.
Yes.
Like, I'm behind you and like our hands are on the chin together and I'm like teaching this little... Can you imagine? So good.
That was very
so
sweet.
good. So good. You kind of have like, you know, Qiao Tianya is a little more rough around the edges, you know, and kind of like a jaded, seen the world man, but still very like intelligent and quick with his words and kind of more of that brusque, casual way. And then, of course, Yao Wenyu is just this like ethereal scholar that just seems so above the world, you know, like someone who Shen Chao or Shelian before suffering the world, like that kind of otherworldly grace. And so it's just such an interesting combination. So you see them meet and have this like instant connection, and you just, you know, you get to see where it goes.
Yeah.
The crumbs of their relationship moving forward are so delicious to me. But before you get too attached, as I did, their relationship is definitely a foil for that of our main characters. What will happen to them as they experience tragedy that changes who they are, physically and emotionally? And will they have the strength and desire to grab onto that relationship and not let go? Okay, I've honestly foreshadowed that enough.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, moving on to lighter topics.
Oh, no. He's meeting all my standards. See also, Shen Yi function and Knuckles?
I said what I said.
One of these things is not like the other.
Like, listen, this ain't about me. This is about Lu Guangbai, okay? And I'm going to take a moment to talk about this peripheral character that we haven't seen too much of just yet, but will become more involved moving forward. Lu Guangbai, the commander of the 20,000-man army at the Bianzhen border. He is the youngest and stupidest son of the prestigious Lu family, but he is also the only one left aside from his ailing father. He is not particularly strong or clever, he has no exceptional feats, no natural talent like the other generals Xiao Jiming and Qi Juyin, but he is a good man who has been doing his best at a thankless task without even a teacher to guide him, holding off the Bianzhe horsemen at the border for year after year, completely reliant on the capital for provisions because Bianzhen is a fucking desert, unlike Libei or the rest of Qidong. So Lu Guangbai has just experienced an unfortunate event. His provisions for the year arrived to his troops, and not only did he get half of what he was supposed to be allotted, but the grain is moldy and hardly enough to get him through the summer, never mind a year. So he is just totally worn out, and this is kind of his final straw. Because every single day, the Bianzhen army is just deployed to fight skirmishes and to protect the border, and the capital takes it for granted and doesn't give a shit because there's no one to advocate for the powerless Lu family there. And so he just has a moment where you just see him sinking into just immense tiredness, and he promises his subordinates that he'll find a way to make things work. But soon enough, he finds himself truly at his limit, and he becomes disillusioned with the capital that accepts his sacrifice and shuns him and refuses him aid. And he's finally at a breaking point where he can't do it any longer. And so what ends up happening, kind of just while our protagonists are doing their thing, he, at the border, kind of goes AWOL. It looks like, oops, is he going deserter? Like, what he just pulled his men out of the watchtowers and just fucked off into the desert? Like, what's happening? Like, he just can't take it anymore. And so there's a little bit of instability at that border. And we're going to see how that connects back to our protagonists in a future volume. But it's just, truly, there is only one chapter that talks about him. And then there is a very interesting scene that parallels our protagonists, what they're doing at a very exciting moment, and his final breaking point. So it all connects back, but you just need to know that he's incredibly sexy to me at this point in time.
Okay.
I just love a good simple man. A good simple man in uniform. So don't judge me.
Buying children from a brothel. Panic. Raising them and giving them an upper class education. Calm. One of them could destroy the country. Panic! Okay.
Okay. So, there's a lot going on here. Okay. Shen Zechuan has been busy investigating the case of the young men and women taken in by Shui Xiuzhou, trying to find his mentors and studying decades of records to get a clue about who might be the mastermind pulling strings in the capital. But because of that, he did not take time to truly establish his authority in the embroidered uniform guard. Because of how quickly he rose to the ranks, his family background, and his young age, there are many older, more experienced, more connected members of the embroidered uniform guard that don't like Shen Zechuan, don't respect him, and simply don't know what kind of commander he is. One of these haters is Fei Sheng. He comes from one of the 8 noble clans and is deeply knowledgeable about what goes on in the capital, but because of his common birth, his family connections have only taken him so far. He was up for promotion in the Embroidered Uniform Guard, but was essentially usurped by Shen Zechuan. He and many other guards have expressed their dissatisfaction through day drinking, dereliction of duty, and disrespecting Shen Zechuan in all ways short of directly disobeying his orders. But Shen Zechuan is able to recruit the begrudging Fei Sheng to seek out his two mentors hidden in the capital with the promise to put him up for promotion by the side of Jiang Qingshan. Jiang Qingshan is a provincial governor in Jueshi with notable administrative skills. The empire's grain essentially flows through his jurisdiction, making him indispensable to all of the nation's armies and thus a very powerful man. Jiang Qingshan is also expected to soon take over administration of Zhongbo under the emperor's orders. He gives Fei Sheng 2 days to conduct his search, and after 2 days, Fei Sheng manages to discover the location. Hongxuan, being a deeply suspicious man, kept his secrets close to his chest, including this one. Next to his estate was a long-abandoned manor of Prince Qin from the prior generation of the royal family who died of tuberculosis. Within it is the corpse of a martial artist and signs that people were living there and signs of struggle, but nothing else. So he was able to track down where Shen Zechuan's mentors were, but not where they currently are. So it's only a clue in this long, aggravating search to find them and rescue them. And within all of that, we got that little nugget of information about grain, okay? We're gonna go back to grain, okay? So Shi Hongxuan was always a very distrusting person in life, but one person he seemed to trust was CeZhou. However, what could he possibly have to offer Shi Hongxuan to place more faith in him than his own family? As Shen Zechuan tries to piece that puzzle together, Xiaojie learns more about the boys and girls that CeZhou purchased from the brothel years ago. Now they are ranging from ages 14 to 18 years old. Strangely, all of them have been schooled and tutored within his residence. The boys have even been taught current events and politics. Hidden within this group must be one particular person that CeZhou set his sights on, but why? You have any guesses before I give you Shen Zechuan's theory? An imperial heir. An imperial heir, not from Li Jiangheng, the young emperor currently on the throne, not from the Xianda emperor who we started with in book 1, but from the Guangcheng emperor who came before him. Under the empress dowager's watchful eyes, no imperial heirs from that harem were born for over a decade. But although the emperor was sickly, he was not too weak to turn outside the palace to break free of the Hua family's hold. If he fathered a child during that time, and if that child ended up in the hands of CeZhou, the empire will ultimately fall into the hands of another noble family ruling from behind the scenes.
Damn.
This is mind-blowing information. It's kind of hard to understand the full scope of, oh fuck, that this brings to the table. Mm-hmm. But when we've gone through all of the political instability of the emperor dies, there's the dowager, and then someone else tries to stage a coup, and then there's the new emperor, but he kind of sucks, but he's trying a little bit better, and then it's there's no one left. There's no one left.
Consider that the sickly emperor still fucked.
It's always something to consider. Turns out, truly, there's no other. If Li Jiangheng dies, there's no one else. He doesn't have an heir yet himself personally, so there's no one else to rule the empire, and that's a very, very dangerous place to be. It's kind of why emperors are kind of obsessed with fucking, right?
Yeah.
This is the worst.
Keep the control.
This is the worst kind of position to be in, because then there's either nobody, and then somebody can just put anybody in, basically, forge a birth certificate. But if you have a real heir, and you happen to be raising it in your backyard, that's a pretty big deal. Mm-hmm. So from that information, they are able to finally piece together that CeZhou was also behind the brothel collapse that nearly killed Li Jiangheng. He's already tried to kill the emperor. He's the only one that stands to gain from that. There's a bone-chilling moment where Xiaojie tells Shen Zechuan that they cannot allow a single one of those 10 girls and boys to live. They have to kill them all. That is the only thing that will keep this country stable.
Oh shit.
It's yes, innocent people have to die. That's not even a question. They are far beyond being oh no, that's so sad. They're has to be done.
Anakin killing the younglings.
A little bit more. Oh, why did he do that?
Had to be done.
I guess so. I guess so. Not only would the Xiao family be screwed, but Shen Zechuan would be kicked down at the nearest opportunity. And beyond that, although the current emperor is pretty lame as an individual, he has a trusting reliance on Hai Liangyi, notably the only upright minister in the court. If Li Jiangheng goes, Hai Liangyi's era also ends, and the country is really going to go to shit. It's kind of crazy how the entire country ultimately relies on a couple of people not being self-serving assholes. Mm-hmm. And that, unfortunately, Like, that person happens to be a really old, tired man who could go at any moment. In classic James Bond villain fashion, we cut to CeZhou immediately and discover that Qi Hualian and Jigong have been imprisoned at his estate this entire time. They're being treated pretty well, thankfully, because CeZhou is trying to convince Qi Hualian to come out of retirement and be the imperial preceptor once more, presumably to act as the mentor for his secret imperial heir. Qi Hualian refuses. CeZhou even brings up Shen Zechuan as a student in contrast, claiming that he is a vestige of evil, a man fueled only by revenge and capable of nothing else, saying that teaching him was no different than enabling a villain. So it's interesting to remember that Qi Hualian is essentially a teacher of princes. His wisdom and life experience is invaluable to someone who aspires to ruling a nation, and he has willingly entrusted that only to two people, the dead crown prince and Shen Zechuan. It's very interesting. Now that CeZhou is their prime suspect, our protagonists can guess that he has possession of Shen Zechuan's mentors, but they can't just walk in and take them, or risk alerting him and having them relocated.
Right.
So that poses another problem, how to get in there and get them out. And then, as if things weren't bad enough, they then receive news from Shi Dan, who traveled to open the Shi family vaults, only to find them empty. Our protagonists have been played for fools. That money has been moved somewhere by someone, and they don't know anything. But Shen Zechuan remains calm and collected, instigating an investigative pursuit to find that silver wherever it's gone. It's simply too much money to be physically housed in the capital, never mind spent, so the answer lies in how and where can that much money be laundered. It would take a powerfully rich and well-connected merchant family, which our protagonists narrowed down to one called the Yan family. However, Shen Zechuan did get that 4 million taels that Shi Hongxuan signed away to him initially, and half of that was transported in a single shipment to CeZhou using the Northeast Provisions Trail. So what we do know is that in Shen Zechuan's bank account, currently got 2 million, but it is physically located in CeZhou.
Got it. Mold, poison, and the grain of truth.
I was so excited to write that down.
Oh my gosh.
More bad news gets delivered to the capital. This time that Xiao Qie's elder brother was severely injured in battle. The Libei armored cavalry was ambushed by an invading Biancha tribe and suffered an unprecedented defeat for the first time in the 30 years since its establishment. Not only is Xiao Qie stricken with worry for his dear brother, but Xiao Juming's injuries means that a new general must take over his command. Under different circumstances, this position would have naturally fallen to Xiao Qie, but he is ultimately a hostage in the capital. Xiao Qie is summoned in front of the emperor alongside high-ranking government officials to learn what happened. This was not a simple defeat in battle, but rather a direct result of something wrong with the military provisions. The rice in transit to Li Bei's army was reported to have mold in it, but despite every check and balance in the system, it was somehow delivered nonetheless. The entire army fell sick the night before this ambush that injured Xiao Qie's brother. How could this be construed as a mere mistake or negligence, a bureaucratic mishap rather than a sabotage that threatens the safety of the entire nation? Xiao Qie comes for blood in this tense dialogue with the ministers in court, refusing excuses and demanding that it be taken to the highest degree of seriousness. The situation is severe. The 2 shipments of provisions represent the bulk of last year's harvest from the granaries of 13 cities. It's essentially meant to last an army of hundreds of thousands of soldiers up to an entire year. Even if the moldy grain is recalled, what can it possibly be replaced with? Where do they get more grain? If it's not replaced in a matter of days, Li Bei's army will be fighting on an empty stomach. And even if they borrow from other prefectures with treasury money they don't have, it won't compare in amount, and the prefectures are so far apart that it would take days just to prepare the shipments. The problem of who to assign as general is solved with the speedy arrival of Zuo Chuanqi, the elderly but notable general who is Xiao Qie's shifu. And thank goodness he arrived, because all it would take is one general with no ties to the Xiao family for the Li Bei armored cavalry to cease being what it is. Also, Xiao Qie's father, Xiao Fengshu, is also coming out of retirement to return to the helm of the Li Bei armored cavalry. The reliance on an older generation for military strength is a subtle but very crucial problem for the nation, which can only grow more dire as time goes on. Something else to take a note of is that while the grain was compromised, Xiao Jiming's food was specifically tampered with. He was poisoned by someone within his own camp, but suppressed the truth to avoid the appearance of internal weakness and prevent bureaucratic investigations from holding up the court from real action. It was very interesting. He actually had all of the mess cooks for the camp killed to prevent any investigation that would lead to the truth that, he was poisoned, rather than just let it be pinned on the problem of the grain. It was a very interesting choice. But yeah, so there's a lot going on behind the scenes as well. What actually happened with the moldy grain is most likely that lower officials in Jueshi were conspiring with Wei Huaigu, the head of the Ministry of Revenue, to substitute government shipments of good fresh harvest with older moldy grain on a small level under the nose of Jiang Qingshan. Then they pulled off this big switcheroo while Jiang Qingshan was transferred to the capital to be vetted for this new position, with the help of Shi Hongxuan's merchant operations to help transfer such large amounts of grain. Piecing this together, our protagonists are determined to get Wei Huaigu arrested and in the hands of the embroidered uniform guards, rather than drawn into a lengthy trial by other ministries. Xiao Qie pulls this off by requesting Han Cheng, the top commander of the embroidered guards, who he is on openly good terms with, to take over the arrest, which makes Hai Liangyi go, whoa, it's a little biased. Let's have Shen Zechuan do it, since you two hate each other, and that should be a little bit more fair.
Oh my god.
Little do they fucking know.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
I love how they're still using their, like, public animosity, you know, to get things done. It's pretty great.
Ballad of Grain and Rice.
You thought we were done with grain?
Oh my god.
Oh, honey, we've just begun with grain. Okay, so Shen Zechuan gets control over the case. The first thing he does with this open permission to conduct investigations is a surprise inspection of Shui Xiuzhou's residence on the pretext of friendly associating with Wei Huaigu.
I thought you were going to say a friendly inspection of Xiao Qie's pants.
He's also doing that at the same time, honestly. But he's like, hey, you're coworkers with this guy who's otherwise honestly unrelated. Let me just raid your house real quick to get his mentors back, hopefully. But when the residence turns up empty of his mentors, Shen Zechuan drops the pretense to ask him directly where the fuck they are. This is really the first time we see them come face to face as enemies, and it reveals how spookily capable and ahead of the game Shui Xiuzhou is. Able to remain calm and elegant and prepared for all manner of attacks. So when Shen Zechuan can't make any progress with him, he simply arrests all 10 of Shui Xiuzhou's adopted little students and tells him that he'll just kill one for every day he doesn't have his mentors back, which finally gets under his skin. He's like, he actually freaks out a little bit. He's like, don't do that. So you're like, they're important, aren't they?
I see.
Well, my fucking teachers are important. So hopefully that works, right?
Yeah.
Shen Zechuan and Xiao Qie also play a game of good cop, bad cop while interrogating Wei Huaigu's co-conspirator in the Jueshi administration, an official from a common background named Yang Chen. In pleading for mercy, he tells them a story that reveals far more than this single incident of corruption. To put it as briefly as possible, the national treasury has been depleted since the reign of the previous emperor. Back in the day, Hua Xichuan and Pan Rugui embezzled a ton of money through construction projects using public funds. One year, a plague of locusts ruined the harvests in Jueshi. Jiang Qingshan personally shouldered the debts caused by forcefully opening the commercial granaries to provide starvation relief for the common people. At this time, the perfect storm was created. The treasury was empty, Jueshi was in crisis, and people across the nation were starving. Hua Xiqian was about to come under fire, the Ministry of Revenue about to be formally investigated, and then, with very convenient timing, the Bianjia horsemen invaded. Zhongbo's prefectures fell one after another before the Libe armored cavalry finally managed to stop them from reaching the capital. Jueshi received its relief grain after that. The grain that would have belonged to the 100,000 dead of Zhongbo. Our protagonists are struck with the horrifying conclusion, finally realizing why this invasion was intentionally orchestrated from the inside. It was to fill the empty granaries and mask the rampant corruption behind the empty treasury. If we just kill a ton of our population, we'll be able to solve all of the problems from fucking selling grain under the table, embezzling money from the treasury. Like, it was just to fill the granaries.
Yeah.
That was just caused by all of this corruption in the capital. It's just horrific that so many people died. Like, both of them are personally traumatized from this.
Yeah.
And it was just for money.
That's awful.
Just for money from the people in power who are supposed to be protecting and serving the common people. It's just fucked up. It's just fucked up beyond all belief. Yeah. Next, they interrogate Wei Huaigu, but he ends up killing himself in prison. Nice. Like Shi Hongxuan, before his death, he says quite a piece to our main characters and really encapsulates a certain view of society, that of the noble families deeply entrenched in power. Then our protagonists discover that every single one of the boys they took from Shui Xiuzhou had been killed. The supposed imperial heir dead.
Got it.
Yeah, so someone got to them beforehand and took care of that.
Right.
So no leverage, I guess, to get his mentors back. But very interesting too. Like, who's that? Like, there's so many actors we don't even know who's doing what. So crazy. Oh my goodness.
Li Zhenheng, Xiao Qiye, ready to peace out of the capital.
Then, on top of that, Xiao Qiye is summoned to the emperor's side because Li Jiangheng is critically ill. Xiao Qiye arrives to see that Li Jiangheng has been actually stabbed. His concubine Miru already dead beside him. She's the one who tried to kill him. On his deathbed, Xiao Qiye is the only one he could call for, despite being the emperor. He expresses fear, guilt, and regret over his short reign, and apologizes to Xiao Qiye as a brother for not being good enough to him. Xiao Qiye walks willingly into a trap to do right by Li Jiangheng, who dies right before his eyes. His last words requesting that he takes the conqueror bow, which is the big-ass bow from the Nanlin hunting grounds that he was once given from the emperor.
Cool.
Yeah. And it's super cool. You have to be like mega super strong to draw it. So it's just like
So now
ultra
he's got
sexy.
this cool bow.
He's got this ultra sexy conqueror bow. Love that for him. Anyways, the trap is that Han Cheng intends to frame Xiao Qiye for the emperor's assassination and has already mobilized the 8 great battalions to do so.
Wow.
Yeah. However, Shen Zechuan rides to the palace to bring Xiao Qiye not only his horse and sword, but reinforcements from both the Imperial Army and Embroidered Uniform Guard. Xiao Qiye announces that today is the day he goes home and that he'll kill anyone who dares stand in his way. The Imperial Army beats back the 8 great battalions all the way to the city gates. Shen Zechuan is the one who fights his way up to the top of the wall and calls for his men to open the gate that has barred Xiao Qiye from his home and his freedom for 6 long years. It's so epic. Like, this is a whole battle taking place in the city. Xiao Qiye gallops through the gate and calls for him. Lanzhou, come with me. Shen Zechuan looks down at him and answers with deep tenderness, Xian, go home. And then he does not look at Xiao Qiye again. Instead, going up against Han Cheng, who is pissed that Shen Zechuan ruined his plan and allowed Xiao Qiye to escape.
Oh my god. He's gonna torture the shit out of him.
This is crazy.
Oh my god.
This is crazy. It's also like...
That's cool though.
It's such a good scene. Like, you're on top of the city wall. You're down below with the horse. It's like, come with me. No, I can't. And it's like, so good.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Into it.
I don't need all the guards at the hex base.
In an attempt to be hip with the kids, I am using modern vernacular.
Shen Zechuan crashing out.
I'm not sure if I've used it properly at all. I don't know if this counts as crashing out. Alternatively, you could call it a little Menti B moment. I don't know.
Blood for his enemies, tears for his Jizen. The B in Menti B is blood.
Han Cheng brought someone with him. Qi Hulian, shackled and dragged behind his horse in the streets. Shen Zechuan immediately folds, willing to kneel and even humiliate himself to save his teacher. But Qi Hulian is old and tired, and he would rather die with his dignity than see his student kneel to a bitch like Han Cheng. So he goes on one last tirade, expressing his final thoughts with deep grief about his own life and the doomed fate of the nation, and tells Shen Zechuan, the cage is broken and the world will surely plunge into turbulence. I've taught you all I could. Why not overturn this rotten sky and earth and create a world you can call your own? Lanzhou, go, don't look back. And he promises to bear the weight for him of the 30,000 soldiers who perished in the sinkhole while he yet lived. He's saying, I will die to carry your sins.
Yeah.
Your sins of surviving when no one else did.
Oh my god.
Han Cheng stabs him mid-sentence. Shen Zechuan is plunged into despair so acutely painful it borders on insanity. He goes on a killing spree, trying to reach Han Cheng, but Han Cheng is killed by a single arrow strike.
Oh, is it from Xiao Qiye at like the castle wall?
Yeah, baby! Xiao Qiye has scaled the city wall to come back for him. He fights his way to Shen Zechuan as the gates lift once more. He throws him onto the back of his horse and gallops out of the capital with the Imperial Army and the 8 great battalions in pursuit.
Hell yeah, that's so cool.
It's so cool! Days later, they are still on the move to CeZhou, but Shen Zechuan, in his grief, has fallen gravely ill. His body was already weak from the medicine that he used to take, and he never fully recovered from the sickness he had during the ditch flooding incident.
He's got skinny Danmei boy
He
disease.
truly does. Xiao Qiye holds him in his arms, keeps him warm, reassures him that Qiao Qianya will find Jigong and return soon. Shen Zechuan struggles to say something, but he can't get the words out until Xiao Qiye gently forces it out of him. The thing buried deeply in his heart that he couldn't say, that finally comes out with a broken sob, are 2 words. It hurts.
Oh.
Over and over again, he repeats it, crying in Xiao Qie's steady embrace. It's years and years of pent-up grief released all at once like a mask that's finally able to come off. And Shen Zechuan no longer seems so mature and calculating beyond his years, just small and sad and in pain.
Ow.
You can join Shillian and it
hurts, yeah.
Yeah, this scene... I'm kind of fucked up for liking it. I love seeing Shen Zechuan show, of course, like the real emotion and vulnerability, because this kid he's fucked up.
Yeah.
He's gone through so much, and he has this like impeccable, like hard exterior of like being so mission focused, nothing gets to him, being so like cold and ruthless, and he does care so deeply about his teachers. Like those are truly the only people who matter to him aside from Xiao Qie.
Yeah.
And seeing how he breaks down losing just one person is so hard.
Yeah.
But it's also like really sweet seeing how Xiao Qie is there for him and he's able to release those feelings with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
No time to be sad. Back to grain.
But there is no time to grieve because their army is on the run. And that means, you'll never guess, they need grain.
Ugh.
They need grain. Yes. And they don't have time to steal it while they're being pursued. And no city would willingly give it to a band currently branded as traitors. So they hatch a plan to convince the 8 great battalions that their soldiers are deserting from the Imperial Army left and right. And they bait them into an attack so they can steal their shit. But the steps that go into actually pulling that off are quite interesting and detailed. Like, it's not just as simple as like tricking the enemy. Like, the enemy's not stupid either. You really have to make it convincing. But I don't have time to get into that. And so they bought themselves some time with this grain that they've stolen from the pursuing army. And Xiao Qie is already planning a life together with Shen Zechuan. But Shen Zechuan tells him that he can't go to Libei with him. He needs to go to Zhongbo instead to redress the wrongs that happened there, to gain strength and power. His teacher entrusted his lifetime of knowledge to him, knowledge meant to guide a ruler and change a nation for the better. Shen Zechuan is honor-bound to live up to those expectations. But this isn't goodbye. He promises Xiao Qie that someday they will be together, but not until he is able to become Xiao Qie's indestructible shield in Zhongbo. Xiao Qie responds with one of the most popular quotes from QJJ, so I ought to say that word for word. He says, "I'll leave my back to you, and you'll leave your chest to me. We cannot do without each other. I'll choose the best horse in Libei for you. We'll build a house on the demarcation line between Zhongbo and Libei and meet there every month. If you want to marry me, 2 million silver isn't enough. I want Lanzhou's priceless smile, far dearer than 1,000 gold."
Oh, that's really sweet.
It's so good. Just how intent they are on being together and not being willing to give that up, but also being willing to accept that it doesn't have to happen right away. Like, they can physically go separate ways, but they'll still make it work long distance.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that ultimately it's all for a better future together. That's beautiful. Yeah. However, one does not simply walk into Libei. You have to get through CeZhou first, which is going to be a little tricky because the governor of the city, Zhou Gui, can't just let the army of traitors waltz through, but he can't not let them through either because, well, it's an army at his doorsteps. So it's up to our protagonist to convince them. They're still actively making moves on each other at every moment of privacy, so don't worry about how recent events have affected their intimacy.
Nice.
They're very secure in their relationship despite knowing they have to part ways soon.
A maid versus them.
Them having gay sex, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a sexy maid. That makes a difference. I put this in the slide, and then it doesn't become relevant till the end of the slide, so you're just going to be mega confused.
I'll be thinking about it. I'll be thinking about it.
Be thinking about it, because you'll be like, how do we get to point B? I'll tell you. Shen Zechuan ends up doing most of the negotiating with Zhou Gui's advisor Kong Ling, who was at once a subordinate under Tan Tai Long and personally faced the devastation that occurred in Zhongbo during the invasion. Shen Zechuan's leadership role in the negotiations was interesting because now that he is no longer part of the embroidered uniform guard in the capital, people see him as a nobody again. But it's the way Xiao Qie treats him as an equal and how he treats Xiao Qie with intimate familiarity that gives him standing before strangers. Intimate familiarity might be an understatement. In private, he explicitly told Xiao Qie not to bully the people they're about to negotiate with, and Xiao Qie responded that of course he'll listen to his wife. Shen Zechuan convinces them to allow the Imperial Army to go through CeZhou by solving its bigger problems. CeZhou can't afford to defend the capital, but it's struggling with a huge bandit problem and no fighting garrison to meet it. It doesn't have money to invest in trade, and its granaries are running on empty after just supplying fresh grain to Libe. Shen Zechuan proposes that the imperial army will take care of the bandit problem and protect the city until its own garrison can be formed. And he will personally invest his own money, the 2 million taels that was transferred from Hongxuan, into the city's development and trade relations, eliminating their reliance on the capital and allowing them to lean into their relationship with Libe, especially in regards to providing military provisions through the Northeast Provision Trail. In his proposal, Shen Zechuan capitalizes on the current uncertainty in the capital. After the emperor's death, a dowager has temporarily taken over, and the imperial court is in a state of chaos. If there was ever a time to become more, shall we say, self-sufficient, it would be now. Shen Zechuan also volunteers to stay in CeZhou as an assurance that the imperial army will not renege on its terms. Although Kong Ling senses the changes on the wind, Zhou Gui hesitates to go through with such a risky alliance. But he then receives word that the bandit leader Lei Changming is on his way to the city with an army of thousands of bandits. Time to give Xiao Qie anything he wants, I guess. Speaking of Xiao Qie and guessing blindly at what he wants, Xiao Qie returns to his room together with Shen Zechuan the night after the negotiations and finds a very pretty maidservant waiting to attend to him. Zhou Gui had the very well-intentioned notion of hospitality that Xiao Qie would enjoy sleeping with a woman given the opportunity.
Oh my god.
However, both of them completely ignore her, and she catches the drift immediately, goes back to Zhou Gui and is like, "Are you fucking blind? Did you see how pretty his boyfriend is? What the hell did you expect to happen? I was embarrassed to even be in the same room as them."
Oh my god!
And he's like, "Oh no, now I've done it."
Wow.
Thankfully, they're both very not petty when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
But that's
funny.
It was a funny moment. And before the volume ends, we'll get like one last reminder, or Xiao Qie has to be like, "Don't fucking mistake things. This is my wife."
Aw, Anne, my fan got dirty.
Shen Zechuan goes with Kong Ling to parley with the infamous bandit leader Lei Changming. However, he betrays both CeZhou and the imperial army by throwing in his lot with Lei Changming instead. Kong Ling is horrified as he's dragged away and imprisoned in a stable, but later on a fellow former soldier under Tan Tai Long turned bandit helps him escape. Meanwhile, Shen Zechuan remains with Lei Changming as he and his bandits party all night long. Being like, "I'm a bandit now, I guess."
Yep.
Seems legit. Despite Lei Changming's incredible accomplishments as a leader and his reputation of being a fair and good man to his subordinates, many of which will only turn to banditry when faced with starvation, Shen Zechuan picks up on a subtle discrepancy between how Lei Changming should be and the man in front of him reveling with wine and women. Lei Changming even turns his lecherous gaze on Shen Zechuan next, asking him to dance for him. We learn that in his years of banditry, he has committed every kind of sadistic sexual crime against women and children alike.
Ew.
But thankfully, even as this gut-wrenching information is delivered to the reader, Shen Zechuan pulls out Avalanche and cuts his fucking head off. Like, there is an unnecessary amount of, like, just, like, this guy's actually fucking horrific. And you're like, I don't need to know that! But then he just kills him instantly. And you're like, yeah!
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, clearly, him, ditching CeZhou and, like, negotiating with the bandits, being like, I'll be on your side, was just an opportunity to fucking kill the leader, which I respect.
Hell yeah.
But it was a very unfortunate scene, because you just, like, you're sitting there and, like, just the debauchery that's occurring around him is escalating, and this guy is just, like, revealing himself as more and more disgusting, and you're just like, please do something, please don't sit there. And then, like, you don't know what's gonna happen, and then, yeah.
Nice.
It just turns into a bloodfest. At the same time, the Imperial Army has surrounded the encampment and silently picked off the patrols one by one before finally attacking the encampment in full force. Of course, Xiao Qie comes himself to pick up his boyfriend and finds Shen Zechuan sulking that the fan Xiao Qie had once given him was dirtied with blood.
Aww.
Ever since Xiao Qie gifted that fan to him, inscribed with his own calligraphy, it had never once left his side, just like Xiao Qie's blue handkerchief.
Aww.
So he is very upset that that was ruined. Of course, Xiao Qie is like, I will make you another one. It's okay. It's after the Imperial Army does a sweep of the camp that they come to the same conclusion that the numbers aren't adding up. All the bandits are new recruits, strays from other bandit groups. Lei Changming's real forces are nowhere to be found, but the Imperial Army has been lured away from the city and cut off from their provisions. So they've actually been one-upped by the bandits somehow, even though Lei Chengming doesn't seem like the brightest bulb in the box. Now, the man who came to rescue Kong Ling is actually Lei Chengming's extremely capable nephew, Lei Jingzhe, perhaps the real leader behind the bandits. He takes Kong Ling back to CeZhou to trick him into opening the city gates for the bandit army, but our protagonists are able to return just in time. Lei Jingzhe briefly faces off with Ding Tao of all people, who is like the teenage boy who is one of Xiao Qie's guards, who jumps on his horse to attack him. Then, after that, Lei Jingzhe faces off against Shen Zechuan in a sword fight. Unfortunately, he escapes with the rest of his retreating army when Ding Tao shouts that the reinforcements have arrived. Reinforcements are actually miles away, but Shen Zechuan told him beforehand that these were magical words he should shout if he was ever in trouble. And it tricked the bandits because it was Ding Tao, a naive-looking teenager, who said them.
Right.
If it was Shen Zechuan who called that the reinforcements were here, they'd be like, are they though? But it was because it was this like punk-ass little kid who was like scared shitless that he's about to be killed.
Yeah.
They're like, oh god, the reinforcements have come. They're nowhere in sight.
That's funny.
It's so funny. And so like there's so many little tricky details like this, and I can't even begin to include all of them. There's just so many good moments in the book. So after the bandits retreat, our protagonists have a slight reprieve in CeZhou and are able to look towards a future together, although this is the start of their separate paths. Shen Zechuan will remain in CeZhou to help reform the garrison, and Xiao Qie will soon head off to Libei after he eliminates the bandit problem once and for all. The volume concludes with one last intimate scene under the moonlight. Xiao Qie is carrying Shen Zechuan on his back just for fun through the darkened streets when Shen Zechuan teases him into running. Xiao Qie takes him all the way back to their temporary residence in CeZhou, but don't even make it to the bedroom before they succumb to desire. Xiao Qie once again brings up the future, saying, let's build a home, here, anywhere. But Shen Zechuan is honestly too busy coming to respond. Twice in less than an hour if you're interested. And before he leaves CeZhou the next day, he tells Zhou Gui and Kong Ling outright not to throw any women or men at him in the future because Shen Zechuan is the future head of his household. Way to be the wife, Xiao Qie. He's like, this man is in charge of me. Don't get it twisted.
Oh my god. I love that. Oh my god.
It's so good. Like, they're both very, like, it's never, like, you know, they use this, like, flirty, like, husband and wife language, but it switches around enough where it's not just, like, strictly heteronormative. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just, like, it's just kinky.
That's so funny.
So that's volume 3. There's a huge shift in the narrative and scope of the story, with our protagonist breaking free of the capital. Some new characters are introduced, and some supporting characters will become more involved moving forward. Honestly, every single volume of this book is very hard to summarize because there's simply an immense amount of detail and nuance with every twist and turn of the plot.
But you do an incredible job.
Oh, thank you. I had to leave out so many little scenes and intricacies that really make the plot compelling and realistic. So if something ever comes off as a little too convenient or contrived, it's probably because I skipped everything that connected point A to point B. You know, I skipped from like the starting situation to the ending situation, but truly everything is thought out so well, from like the military maneuvers to like the political lies and trickeries. And I even left out some of the sexy scenes because there's just so many of them, honestly. So truly, it's a good book to read yourself if you're invested.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for another incredible Danmei book review. And if you guys liked this video and would like to see more, be sure to hit subscribe as we are reviewing all the Danmei that come out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Bye.